All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we have a Houston Rocket video for you. I hope you guys are having a great Sunday. If you're watching this and it's no longer the weekend, I hope it was a good weekend, man. Let's get into this Houston Rockets video. If you enjoy it, hit the like button, hit the sub button if you haven't already. Do this every day, make NBA videos every day. So free agency is going to start here soon, and I just kind of want to find more players that the Houston Rockets could potentially sign, because it's like the more I really dig into this team, the more I think they can actually make the playoffs. I mean, they have some solid talent already on the team, and then they have some really promising young bucks like KJ Martin, Jae'Sean Tate. And then you have guys who can come in and help you compete already, like KPJ, John Wall, Eric Gordon, Christian Wood. So I want to just see some free agents. Personally, man, it's tough. This offseason, let's do this video as if the draft had not happened, right? Because the draft hasn't happened yet. So I'm going to make this video assuming a world where the Rockets had 0 draft picks and that they just had some holes they needed to fill. And let's get into it. I would say my wish list, if the Houston Rockets didn't have a first-round pick this year, I would say my wish list are big men, a backup point guard, and some wing defenders possibly. Now, Chris Paul, Kawhi Leonard, Mike Conley, DeMar DeRozan, Otto Porter Jr., none of these guys would, let's just do the first 5. None of those guys would go to the Houston Rockets this offseason. A guy like Otto Porter Jr. is not worth really anything if you have Jae'Sean Tate and KJ Martin sitting there on the bench. So going from Otto Porter Jr., Victor Oladipo, I actually don't even really need to comment on that. Goran Dragic is cool, but he would definitely be way too much money to come off of the bench. Tim Hardaway Jr., Dennis Schroeder, Evan Fournier, Danny Green. I would say majority of those guys are going to start. Looking at big men, you have Kelly Olynyk making about $12.5 million this last year. He's coming off probably the best streak of his career. So I would say Kelly Olynyk, I don't think his camp's going to ask for more than $15 million. I think, honestly, the number to retain Kelly Olynyk will be around $15 million. And I'm sorry, Rocket fans, but Kelly Olynyk's defense just is not good enough to me to warrant $15 million for a 30-plus-year-old. It just doesn't make enough sense logistically to me. I just can't see a world where I really want to re-sign Kelly Olynyk unless he's making similar money to what he's making right now, but coming off of the bench. So we got to fill Kelly Olynyk's hole. I don't think the Rockets are going to draft Evan Mobley, so got to find a big man. The problem is a lot of these big men are pretty old. Like looking at Paul Millsap. I mean, Paul Millsap, he only makes about $10 million a year. I wouldn't be too upset with getting Paul Millsap. $10 million per year. But once again, I mean, this man is just old. He's 36 years old. Like, that's just not ideal one bit. So got to kind of get a little bit more creative here. I was thinking about Montrezl Harrell the other day, actually, because he's making less than $10 million right now on the Los Angeles Lakers. And personally, there is no way to me that the Lakers get him back. You know, I think Trez knows where his value's at. I don't think Trez really likes Vogel. Honestly, with the Lakers, it seems like a lot of these guys aren't really even kind of vibing with Frank Vogel. I don't really vibe too much with Frank Vogel. I think he's a good coach, but I think there's better coaches out there. So looking at Montrezl Harrell, this could be a very underrated signing for the Houston Rockets because Trez fits our young frame. He fits that mold of a small big man that, you know, GM Stone said he was looking for. The problem with Trez is he can't really stretch the floor that much. But I think a starting front court of Christian Wood at the 5, Trez at the 4, I think that could be useful right there. So I'm all for a Trez reunion to get back to Houston. I just think his time in LA on the Lakers side, it's not going nearly as good as it was on the Clippers. I mean, on the Clippers, 18 and a half points per game, 7 rebounds per game. This guy, 6th man of the year. It's as simple as that. So I think Trez should be somebody to at least maybe look into. That's the whole issue with this, though, guys, right? Is if you don't get a guy like Trez, or you don't get a guy like Millsap, or a guy even like Kelly Olynyk, and you don't draft, like some people just think that the Houston Rockets are going to draft Jalen Green at number 2 and then like JT Thor at 23, and then they're good. Like, that's it. All you need is 2 big men on NBA rosters nowadays, and that's like, I hear that, and it's like, dude, like if we go into next season with JT Thor being our starting power forward, I promise you, Houston Rocket fans, you're in for a long season, man. If he comes out and he's looking starting ready, that's a whole different story. If he comes out, starts the season off hot, gets to a starting position, totally different story. But like a player at 23, 24, a guy like JT Thor, like they're not going to be able to come in and give consistent production for you to not want to like lose your mind, right? So that's the issue. That's the issue with this. And that's why a lot of Rocket fans are just super content with re-signing Kelly Olynyk, because to them, it's better to re-sign Kelly Olynyk on like a 3-year deal than have to refigure this situation out. Personally, that's why I really like the Evan Mobley draft, because it's not that crazy. If they draft Evan Mobley, it's honestly probably a good thing. Because that really solves, or doesn't really solve it, but I don't know, man. Here's what I'm trying to get at, as simple as I can make it. I don't want the Houston Rockets next season to have 1 big man, and it's Christian Wood. I don't want the Rockets to have two big men, and it's Christian Wood and Kelly Olynyk, or Christian Wood and JT Thor. I need the Rockets to have more than 2 big men. I know Montrezl Harrell is, what's he, 6'7"? He's not necessarily a big man, but it's better than nothing, man. God. That's what's tough about this upcoming free agency is all the power forward, all the power forward center duos, they're either really old or they're just not very good basketball players. Cristiano Felicio, oh my God, I'd rather die. JaMychal Green might be interested right there. Trey Lyles? Should the Rockets go after Lauri Markkanen? My answer is an easy no. That's why I made yesterday's video on Nerlens Noel, because I think he might be perfect for this team. Now, Nerlens Noel, Trez, and I've actually made a couple videos about Richaun Holmes before, but Richaun Holmes to me would be the ideal number 4. He's not too big, not too small. He's 6'10". I think he would fit nicely with Christian Wood in his ability to stretch the floor. The only downside about Richaun Holmes is he's not a three-point shooter whatsoever. I guess he's a career 25% three-point shooter, but, I mean, on his career, he averages half a 3 a game. He hasn't shot more than 1 3 a game since 2016 when he was on Philadelphia. But Rashawn's one of those guys who gets 28, 29 minutes a game, 14 points, 8 rebounds. He's extremely underrated. I think Richaun Holmes is one of the most underrated big men in the league, and you'd be able to get him at a totally reasonable price. I mean, right now, Richaun Holmes is making like $5 million. So Richaun Holmes would be perfect. Just the thing is, I think that the Kings are going to get him. I think the Kings are going to snag him again. And if the Kings don't snag him again, I think some other team is going to offer him a bunch of money. I don't see the Rockets really offering too many players in the offseason like a whole bunch of money. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that they would rather keep the money open, keep the cap space, there. Gives you more flexibility. You can do, you just have more options. Frank Kaminsky, relatively decent option, I guess. Nothing too crazy, but relatively cheap backup big man. The thing is if we're not going to get a 4, if we're not going to get, your typical 4 and we're going to go small, say even Jayshawn Tate or KJ Martin plays the 4, which I'm okay with, because both of those two guys are, first off, Jayshawn Tate's been showing good defense and KJ's been getting much better on defense. Let's talk about guards real quick. I mentioned I did want to get a backup point guard, and I do want to get more defensive wings, preferably who can shoot the ball. An example would be Garrett Temple. Garrett Temple played for my Chicago Bulls this past season, and he did a phenomenal job. I mean, there were literally 2 games at the end of the season where Garrett Temple held Jason Tatum to 9 points one game and I think 13 the other. I mean, he locked Jason Tatum up, and he can make the 3 ball. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm thinking like defensive guards, because I actually like Avery Bradley. I wouldn't mind Avery Bradley to come back on the Houston Rockets. He's on a really team-friendly deal, making less than $5 million, just like Garrett Temple, and they can hit the 3 ball, but most importantly, they can give you just really good perimeter defense. They say it time and time again, no championships teams have, like every championship team has perimeter guards who can defend. Every single one. Every single one. I mean, you look at Drew Holiday, you look at Chris Middleton, every single one. So that's what I'm thinking there. As far as backup point guards go, I'm not 100% sure. Here's where it gets tricky, because it's ideally our backup point guard next year is young from somebody we draft. On the other hand, is you never know. What if they just stick with DJ Augustine? DJ Augustine's on like a 3-year deal right now. I think DJ will be good as gone, but that's kind of the concern, is what if they stick with DJ Augustine, which isn't that big of a deal. What do you do if DJ Augustine is your current backup point guard and you're going to just go get a new veteran to come off the bench at the point guard position? Then it's like, why are you getting rid of DJ Augustine? You know what I'm saying? So that's why I want the Rockets to draft a young point guard exactly like a Trey Mann. Like Trey Mann is literally my pick at 23 because he can play backup point guard. He is young, has something to look forward to. Say John Wall gets traded, KPJ, Trey Mann, there are 2 guards. I like the way that sounds. Armani Brooks to me is not a point guard whatsoever. He's a perfect shooting guard to me. I mean, he can shoot lights out from 3. Kyrie Thomas, we'll see. I would just like to have a little bit more than Kyrie Thomas. So, like I said, that's my concern is I want a backup point guard, but if we're just going to sign a veteran backup point guard, then why not just keep DJ Augustine at that point, right? If you're going to go sign a TJ McConnell, what's the point? So we'll see what happens with that. Another power forward that could be low-key for us, Jeff Green. I really like Jeff Green. I mean, that would be another reunion. Good 3-point shooter, good defensive anchor, and you can just rely on him. He's not too old. He's not too young. He's perfect. In my opinion, he's perfect. Jared Allen's down there, but Jared Allen just got re-signed. I have a whole video on why I'm so glad we traded away Jared Allen. Dwight Howard, same thing, just way too old. Hassan Whiteside would be intriguing. Hassan Whiteside would be very intriguing. However, I don't think that it would work one bit because he doesn't play defense. He doesn't even try on the defensive end. So there would be some issues there. Yeah, let's give it a solid no. John Collins, that's going to be the big vocal point this offseason. I would say, honestly, I don't think that what I think happens, honestly, with him on the Hawks is I think they re-sign him and then trade him eventually if it doesn't work out. I'm for signing John Collins. I really like him. The only issue is he's got a lot of flaws, so you're taking a pretty big risk. When Trae Young's off the court, go watch a Hawks game when Trae Young didn't play. John Collins pretty much is non-existent because Trae Young creates a lot of his shots, and John Collins is not a playmaker at all. So got to keep that in mind. And, I mean, yeah, Matthew Dellavedova, Raul Neto, what's the point of even getting those types of players if we already have a solid backup point guard? So I guess maybe the best option at the backup point guard position is to just draft somebody, have them kind of split minutes, and then maybe try and trade away DJ Augustine once Trey Mann or whoever they pick at point guard, backup point guard, is ready. I really like Devontae Graham. However, he's not very good on the defensive end, and I don't think he moves the needle enough for me to kind of warrant his big payday this offseason. If they could get good defensive-minded guards who can also help on offense, somehow get THT, somehow get Bruce Brown. Both of those guys are restricted, so I don't think either of those happen. But That's kind of that defensive-minded guard that I'm talking about here. I believe Cameron Payne's going to be a free agent. I wouldn't be too upset if the Houston Rockets went and tried to get a campaign on this team. Now, I really want to just hear from you guys down below in the comments on which players you want, which Houston Rocket guys you want to see on this team next year that are current free agents. Love you guys. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you're still here right now, that's absolutely crazy. I have a ton of Houston Rocket video ideas that I want to make, so go ahead and comment if you have any that you want me to cover. But, I mean, it should just be a bunch of Houston Rockets content for the most part. So, really quickly, I do want to just say something. If you are still watching this video, go ahead and comment who the first ever Houston Rockets coach was. I think this is just kind of a fun little thing. I'm trying to get an idea to get to 5,000 or an idea for a 5,000 subscriber giveaway. So, go ahead, comment who the first Houston Rocket coach is, and maybe, who knows, maybe the first guy who comments it might get a prize. So, peace.